Greetings and welcome to Election 2017, presented by Whitman Hanson Community Access. My name is Bob Hayes and I'm going to be the moderator for today's forum. I have 3 of the 4 candidates for Hanson Selectmen with me today. One of the candidates is running a little bit late. I believe maybe he had work or something going on, but I expect him to be coming in just a smidge late. The 3 candidates I have with me today are incumbent Bill Scott, James Egan, who is a candidate for election, and Laura Fitzgerald Kemet, another candidate for election. We have 2 seats open and 4 candidates currently running for the Hanson Board of Selectmen, which, as you've probably heard me say before, is a good thing. There's been years when we've had open seats and maybe one person running for the seat. So the best part of democracy is that we have 4 people this year running. I'm going to be letting them do a 2-minute introduction, which you will see in a moment, and then we'll be asking some questions, and these questions were brought forward by the very people who view Whitman Hanson Community Access and some community members, so it's going to be a little bit different forum than we've had in the previous time. So I welcome all 3 of you. It's great to see you and great to have you here. As democracy goes, doesn't get any better than this. So, Mr. Scott, you're the incumbent. You can lead in with the introduction of who you are and why you're running.
Okay. My name is Bill Scott, William Scott, but I go by Bill. And is he talking? I'm hearing another voice. Okay. I'm currently a member of the Board of Selectmen. I'm winding down my 3rd year as a selectman in Hanson. I've enjoyed all of it that we've done. We've been able to accomplish an awful lot in the 3 years we've been here. And unfortunately, we came on board after the school issue was voted down. But what we were able to do with our board was to work forward with the Building Repair Committee and fix the Indian Head and the McQuon School, and working with the McQuon on the idea that it may be closing in the near future. So we're trying to, you hate to use the word Band-Aid, but take an approach that we're not spending a lot of money that may or may not be wasted down the road. Other issues that we've been dealing with in town was always a big topic at town meetings was, what are you going to do about Plymouth County Hospital? Well, we did something about that. We've had what we called the final committee. It kind of got a little bit of traction with joking, but it was a final committee to deal with the hospital. And they come up with some excellent ideas, and we put an article on that voted by the townsfolk to actually tear it down. Right around $1 million or $1.2 million for the tear down of that. That's pretty much all has been completed. They're still hauling material out, but it's all torn down and they're moving forward with that. There's a tremendous amount of ideas as to how to move forward with the Plymouth County Hospital, including walking trails, parks, et cetera, things maybe looking out to Habitat for Humanity for a home on part of the property. Possibly there may be some development up there that could be considered. No, but those ideas are just ideas at this point, and nobody has moved forward on that. But at least there's some traction on that. We got some issues with with Main Street, concerns about that, but those areas down there are all private property, so basically our boards, our regulatory boards, are the ones that will be dealing with that in the future as any development tries to go forward. There are a ton of issues down there, with environmental issues, close to the wetlands and everything, so it's going to be quite a task for. But I think what we can do as a town is try to support them as best we can in their efforts and see if we can get that developed. Another area by the tracks, there's an old, I guess it was a package store or what have you. It's gotten to kind of be an eyesore. We may reach out in the future to, if the town might have an interest in purchasing it and tearing it down and doing something with that. It's kind of an eyesore now. So there's a lot of things on the burner. Our highway department is in dire need of repair or upgrade or whatever, so we've embarked on looking at a site that has been offered to us at no cost, approximately 7 acres and 2 existing buildings, to move forward, and it might be a good project, and we're working on that. I'm chair of the Highway Building Committee, and we're working towards that now and waiting for them to complete all their permitting and all of their cleanup aspects down there. So am I at my time? I am.
You're good. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Mr. Egan.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Jim Egan. I'm running for the seat on the Board of Selectmen. I have occupied a seat on that board for approximately 9 years. That's 3 terms. I've been a resident of Hanson since 1973. I have, during my service to the town, I've served on various committees, the bylaw subcommittee, the capital improvement committee, open space, several others. And as a result of that experience, I've built up an ability to deal with problems, an ability to see through a particular issue to a conclusion, working with other people. As a result of that, I believe that I have a certain skill set that I think selectmen should have. I think you need to be open. I think you need to be honest. You present your arguments using factual information and let the townspeople come to their own conclusions. I think we have several key points or key issues facing the town of Hanson in the immediate future. One of the things that I feel very strongly about is the lack of a maintenance program for town facilities. We just kind of do a knee-jerk reaction. When something happens, we try to repair it as opposed to doing some preventative maintenance. It seems to me that it would cost a lot less and be a lot more sane if we were able to project out several years and take care of our buildings, structures, facilities in a more sane manner than simply responding to an emergency. I know from my service on the Capital Improvement Committee, many issues came before that committee that could have been prevented if indeed they had been treated as a maintenance issue early on as opposed to waiting until it gets to the point where it's a capital improvement. I think probably one of the most crucial things that's facing the town, of course, is a revenue stream and the ability to raise the monies that are necessary to provide the services which the townspeople expect. That is going to be extremely difficult to do in the future as our revenue stream keeps getting compromised and, shall we say, pinched, as opposed to our obligations, which keep increasing. It's been an issue for several years. It's becoming a crucial issue, and I think probably next year we will be facing either a significant override or some issue in terms of trying to fund our standard, everyday, back-to-school kind of issues. It is a crucial issue. We need to make a decision. I think the town needs to decide what kind of a vision it has for the future and move in that direction. It's also an issue with me that I believe is really important, is to try to change the tone of the political discourse in town, and hopefully that will take place. I know that during this campaign, it has been a much more enjoyable experience than the previous campaign in which I operated. So those kinds of issues are the issues that concern me. And as a result of those issues and my experience, I'm hopeful that the citizens of Hanson will see to it that they can cast a vote for me on Saturday the 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Laura?
My name is Laura Fitzgerald Kemet. I'm a 20-year resident of Hanson, and I've spent the majority of my professional career in the financial services industry. I've risen through the ranks there. I currently lead the regulatory group for large market retirement plans, so Fortune 500 retirement plans. I take compliance and adherence to the regulations very seriously. It's my job, so I take it seriously and I enjoy it. In terms of my community involvement, A lot of people know me as the person who does all kinds of fundraisers, like the St. Patrick's Day fundraiser, the Truck or Treat, a bunch of Panther Education Trust fundraisers. I really enjoy doing that. I enjoy working with a lot of the great organizations that we've got around in the community, Panther Education Trust, the Hanson Food Pantry, Kiwanis, and bringing people together for a common cause to raise money for a specific outcome. I'm also the chair of the Hanson Community Preservation Committee, and we've accomplished quite a bit in a short period of time with that. That's an awesome committee that's made up of people from all kinds of other committees in town. And again, in that role, I've demonstrated the ability to pull people together and execute to a plan. I also have co-founded the Hanson Business Network because my husband and I are small business owners, and we believe that although Hanson will probably never be a mecca for very large businesses, we can certainly help small businesses thrive, and it's important for a community to have a good, thriving small business community. More and more often as we get into these, into people retiring, baby boomers retiring, a lot of people are opting into starting their own businesses. And we're seeing this in the Hanson Business Network, but we're seeing it nationwide. And so we want to make sure that Hanson is supporting those small businesses. And one of the things I saw in the Hanson Business Network, and I've seen just in general, is that there is a lack of robust planning on our part in Hanson. We are very reactive to things. As Mr. Egan alluded to with our facilities, we're very reactive. We kind of wait until something happens. We're not planning. This is unnecessary. We are able to plan if we decide that that's a priority. We can easily put together a facility maintenance plan, perhaps look into whether it's economically feasible to have a part-time facilities director to oversee that facilities maintenance plan. We also need to do better about our capital improvement plan, and we need to make sure that although we've kicked the can up the road on a number of things, that we go through that capital improvement plan and we vet what is a priority on that capital improvement plan, what absolutely must be done this year versus next year versus the following year. Similarly, with our school budget, we can do a lot better planning with the school committee in terms of what the asks are going to be coming up. And we also need to be proactive about attracting, and again, not large businesses, but small businesses to our town.
Laura, thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we have three very robust candidates that all want to be elected to the Board of Selectmen with 4 seats. This question that I'm going to ask the three of you, and I can't believe how many times it was emailed or sent, and so I'm just going to come right out and ask it. How many times have you attended town meeting? In the order that I have, Laura?
I honestly couldn't even tell you. I know I've attended every year for at least the last 15 years. And I'd say probably just in the first 5 years we were here, I probably didn't attend every year because I had little people and it was difficult to juggle. But I'd say every year for at least the last 15.
Bill?
At least since 1966. A little bit of off and on because of my obligations in other towns. I was a former police chief and what have you, so I attended their town meetings and Memorial Day parades and what have you. But I would say probably, well, not all, but many, many town meetings.
Great. Mr. Egan?
Well, I've been trying to add things up as as the other candidates were trying to answer the question. You know, I'm not really sure, but I know that since 1988 I have attended every town meeting, and it was spotty before that. So that's the best I can do at that point. I've been to a few, yeah.
So several town meetings for all three candidates,
Yeah.
because as you know, I've attended a few myself, and it's wild sometimes. Town meeting is probably the best form of local government, but at times we may not think that it is, and that leads into the next question I have. Do you think that town meeting is still an effective way that towns like Hanson or Whitman can run when we have such a difficult time getting a quorum? We have 150 people running a town of 6,000 or so registered voters. Do you think it's still effective? I'm going to start with Mr. Egan.
Is it effective? Yes. That's the short answer. The long answer is a little bit more involved in terms of it is probably the purest form of democracy in America at this point in time, and I would hate to see it go away. However, there are inefficiencies, but then again, it is a democracy, and no one ever said democracy was efficient. It does have a great deal of efficacy, however. Yeah, I would like to see town meeting continue. I think it's important that a town of this size especially, it's not that large a town, and if a person is concerned, it's very easy to show up and voice those concerns. It's an intimate group, as you say, about 150 people. I had classes larger than that when I was teaching. So it's, it's definitely good. It's inefficient sometimes. It is certainly a show at times. We should continue.
Mr. Scott?
I agree. I think that town meeting is of the utmost importance. I'm not sure how you might want to get more people involved. It's unfortunate that it takes some sort of a controversy or a override or something of that nature. Maybe we should come up with some override question every year to get the folks out. And that may or may not be a good idea, but it seems to draw people when you get something like that, whether it affects their taxes or their way of life and all that. But we're all familiar with it. All the towns are pretty much going through the same type of situation. I listened to comments about a Yarmouth town meeting down on the Cape, and they used to get quite a bit of attendance, but for the size of Yarmouth and what have, it's very low. And I'm not sure what might motivate people to come out, changing the date, the times, things like that may be of concern. That may or may not work, but I think it's good to keep it going. You get the dialogue there. It's a shame that 150 people is in our town actually not govern, but run the town from a monetary standpoint. And that is good or bad, I don't know, but that seems to be what's happening, but we should keep it going.
Laura?
I love town meeting. I absolutely think it's critical to keep that going. I would like to see more people engaged. I think all three of us probably could sit and tell you in advance who's going to show up at town meeting. It's so predictable, really. I mean, there's a little variety depending upon if there's a school issue, you might get some parents that don't ordinarily come, but there's a core of people that do come every town meeting. And I share some of the concerns that both of these gentlemen voiced, which is, on the downside, you've got 150 people deciding how things get run. On the upside, your voice actually makes a difference. Your vote actually makes a difference. So I would want to keep it. I definitely would want to experiment with how can we engage more people to show up so it's more meaningful and more representative of the population in general in Hanson. Do we do it on a Saturday? Do we do it on a Friday night? I don't know. What can we do to kind of shake it up? Daycare has been provided. That seems to help a little bit. But I would really like to, kind of open that up and take a look at what could we do to encourage more people to come.
Okay. This is a hot topic. It's been a topic. I've seen people call it the dead zone. Hanson has a problem with cell phones. It doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. As board members, if you choose to be elected, how would you go about providing better phone service in the town of Hanson? And Laura, you can go first with this one.
Great, thanks, Bob. So, yeah, that's the hot potato. As you know, we had a failed vote to have it put on a flagpole in front of Town Hall. Then we went to having it behind the fire station, and the folks in the fire station were concerned about it being in the fall zone and potential, I don't know if not radiation, but like radio waves or whatever. And that's all valid, and it's certainly within their purview to, to voice that concern. We don't want people feeling uncomfortable. I would love to see us be able to do something. Unfortunately, my understanding is that there's not a lot of companies that are out there willing to invest more in infrastructure right now. The way that that business is, there was a window of time when we might have been able to really be attractive. I'm not saying to abandon all hope, but I'd like to still keep working on that and see what we can do, perhaps take a look at other locations around town. But we do need to do something about it. It's pretty sad.
Okay, Mr. Egan.
Obviously, the way to make it a better system is we need another tower, and we need it somewhere in the vicinity of the central part of town, what we refer to as the center part of town, fire station, town hall, in that area. There was a proposal several years ago to put the antennas on the water tank. And I recall at the time someone suggested that we should drive down to Halifax and take a look at their water tower because they had those types of antennas. And I did that. And I was amazed because I couldn't see the antennas. They looked like panels. They're about, from the ground looking up, they were about 18 inches by 24 inches, and they were spaced around the perimeter of the walkway at the tower, and they were basically invisible. That would help a great deal, but that was voted down. A group of citizens were upset and didn't want to do that. And then, as Laura pointed out, the fire station situation fell through. There was a time when we were looking at the site near the boat landing at Town Hall, and that also fell through. So we are, at this point, not really involved in correcting the situation. There was at one point also a possibility of a tower somewhere in the vicinity around the McDonald's property, but that would be a private endeavor, and the town wouldn't receive the benefits of rental income from that. It's a problem, and the basic solution is another antenna, and I don't know what's going to happen there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I think part of the problem has been stated. Some certain number of companies that involve themselves in that, whether it be, the Comcast or whatever, they haven't had any interest, and the company that was going to install the tower dropped the ball, so to speak, on that, and then we eventually got out of that contract. I understand now that if the light control property, the part of the inclusion down there is a tower, radio or telephone, whatever type of tower that's currently in existence that's rented out, then that deal was engineered by light control. And so if we do take it over, there'll be no money come to the town for what's existing there, but there may be room on that tower to add some antennas if it's a place that's good for location and that sort of thing. Another option that has been discussed, Mr. Hasiotis, who's the owner of the Cranberry Bog and would be the old Ritter property, he's been open to some discussion about possibly putting a tower on his property, which would bring it closer to the central part of town because that abuts Wampatuck Pond and that sort of thing. As far as geographically, so that may be an option for a site. So I'm very much in favor, if I get reelected, obviously to work towards that goal and reach out to the different companies and see if we can get that ball rolling. And there's a lot of concern, but at this point we're not able to move on it without any companies having an interest in doing that. So I think that's where we are.
Thank you. 3 good answers, and I'm sure the people viewing this got their fingers crossed that something's going to happen about cell service. I know I have. Another hot topic in town that I had quite a few people is trash service. Hanson has a facility, and we went to pay as you throw, orange bags. And then it appeared that a ton of residents, and again, there is no number that I know of that's been presented, have private haulers. Is it time to close the transfer station? Is it supporting itself? I know these are 2 separate questions and that you probably need numbers, so I guess I'll try to make the question as one. Do you support looking into some sort of a study to find out if the transfer station is viable or if it's costing the town money? Should we go to private haulers? Trash transfer discussions, what I'm looking for. So I would say, Mr. Scott, you can go first on this.
The pay-as-you-throw plan was brought about just before I was elected at the time, and we came on board. I came on board having to deal with that. There was some grants that were applied for and what have you, and they didn't go forward. And a lot of folks decided that they would actually leave and go with the private haulers. Personally, I look at it as a failed program. The dump, I call it the dump. We always called it that for many, many years. The transfer station. It's operating. It's doing very well, but it has a reduced number of people that are going there because of the private haulers involved in the pickup. I'd like to have seen some options at the time that certainly were not given to us. Maybe curbside pickup or maybe some other alternatives. A lot of people that I've talked to decided they wanted to go away from buying the bags and the inconvenience that may or may not go along with that. So I think maybe we should take a look at it. Whether we need another committee or not, I don't know, but we should take a look at how it is functioning. The Board of Health is chirping that it's doing just great and it's a self-functioning and it's self-sustaining. Well, I don't agree with that entirely, but I think a number of people might agree, but it needs to be looked at and see if we may be able to improve the trash hauling in the pickup in the town. So.
Okay, thank you. Laura?
I certainly would want to work with the Board of Health in looking at that. I agree. It does seem as though, and this is purely anecdotal, I don't have any numbers, but when you drive around, it seems like there's an awful lot of people using the pickup service. And I'd want to take a look at when will the program be completely self-sufficient and pay for itself. I think it's taking a bit longer than the Board of Health had hoped that it would, and than the prior Board of Selectmen. But I am absolutely open to taking a look at, what is financially in the best interest of the town, and not just financially, but also convenience. We're at a point now where we've got a lot of two-income families or people that can't make it to the dump on the hours, and they've been flexible. They've changed up the hours, so I absolutely have to give them that. But I think we should take a look at it. It's time to take a look at it. It's been in place for a few years, and it's time to take a fresh look and see if it's working, what's not working, and see where we can take it from there.
Thank you. Mr. Egan?
Well, excuse me. The program the pay-as-you-throw program was put in place in response to a rather significant rate increase in terms of our haulers. And the town simply didn't have the resources to provide that kind of service any longer. So we were faced with possibly closing the transfer station or going with a pay-as-you-throw program to try to help pay for the operation. We obviously chose to do it the pay-as-you-throw. Considering at the time, and I think still, that this was a first step toward hopefully going to a curbside pickup process. But we were not able to do that initially simply because the planning wasn't in place. The efforts to get involved in that process will take a good deal longer than what we were faced with at the time. If you recall, it was a situation where the budget was trying to be finalized, and we were in a rather significant deficit situation. One of the ways out of that was to stop paying, because the increase was going to go from, it was like almost a 100% increase, and that was just untenable. So faced with that, we took the first step, which was pay-as-you-throw. Hopefully the second step could be, and it does need to be looked at. We do need to do study because it gets pretty complicated, but the curbside pickup option is what it seems most people are interested in doing. What that would cost the town to implement is a significant question. And we need to look at that, we need to study it, we need to come to some conclusions and see what we can do next. What we have now is not the final solution, I agree. However, it was a good first step. We need to take the second step, perhaps.
Okay, thank you. We talked about committees, and I guess I'm the one who brought it up. Do we need a committee to study this? One of the big questions was, do we have too many committees in the town of Hanson? Everything seems to be a study or a committee, and people are saying, make a decision and move us forward. This is pretty much almost a yes or a no. I'll let you elaborate a little bit. Do you think we have too many committees? Mr. Egan.
Committees are not very efficient, I find. And sometimes they don't really resolve the issue that they're trying to do. However, I'm not at all certain that any one person in town has the authority, or do I want them to have the authority to make decisions to move us ahead without some sort of discussion, some sort of a presentation and a rather wider perspective. So yes, committees are somewhat problematical, but I think we need them.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, with a little quick anecdote, we used to talk about a camel being a racehorse that was designed by a committee. I'm not a big fan of committees. There are times when you do need them. I think that what we have done recently, our board has brought on a new professional town administrator, and he seems to have tremendous amount of background and ability in grant writing and moving things forward. Whether we can overload him with continuing types of things like that. But committees on occasion are necessary, but I think sometimes we overdo it with forming a new committee. One good thing about a committee, you bring the expertise of people that could be residents at large that some of our employees, some of the people, some of our board may not have. So that's good in that respect. So,
Thank you. Laura?
I mean, I think sometimes the decision by a committee is like death by a thousand cuts. You know, it can be quite painful, quite glacial. But nevertheless, you know, and I do think that we could certainly use a refresher and take a look at some of the committees that are out there and see if they're redundant or, you know, if they're even functioning. You know, there's several committees where we never get anybody stepping up to, you know, to be part of the so-called committee. So we probably need to take a look at that. I do think that committees really do fill an important need, which is that we've been talking about getting more people to town meeting and getting more people engaged. Well, the way you do that is everybody's got different skills that they bring to the table. They've got different things they're interested in, and a certain committee may appeal to somebody, and that's a way to get people involved. And I would venture to say that the three of us sitting here at one point or another started out on a committee. And then you get the bug and you start digging in more. So, you know, I think it's a learning curve, and I think they're kind of a necessary evil, but they do need to be periodically examined for their efficiency and effectiveness.
I'll give you the fact that the four of us standing in this room have all been on several committees in the town of Hanson. My next question, this is another hot topic, and these were all good questions. I want to thank the people for sending them in. This is an elephant in the room. It's always been. It's been going on for as long as I've been in Hanson. Is it time to combine the highway department and the water department as one department? Laura, your number's up.
Yeah, it seems to be going that way today. That's an interesting question. I think that it's definitely something that would bear looking into. For me, the bottom line would be show me the numbers and tell me what we would how would the citizens of Hanson benefit from this in terms of services and in terms of savings. Those are the two big things that I would be looking at. And you know, I certainly wouldn't want to see us taking on anything that would result in immediate layoffs or anything of that sort. But in my experience, typically, you've got some scales of economy that you can leverage where you've got, you know, equipment, you've got, perhaps you could even take a look at, for instance, if we did move forward with the highway department, there may be some excess capacity there to have the water department in there. And then maybe you've got that building that the water department is in that could be sold. You know, these are all things that could be looked at in the context of a DPW. So I wouldn't rule it out. I would say, unfortunately, to harken back to your last question, you'd probably need to have a committee to look at that, or at least some thoughtful analysis by the town administrator and our accountant. So that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Scott?
yes, the idea is great. DPW in small towns traditionally hasn't worked as well as we might like to. When I was in Hanover, I wasn't involved in it, but the Hanover Highway, and they went to a DPW, and it kind of took a lot of the so-called fiefdom aspect of one versus the other away from it, but it also created some other significant problems, and there were some people that weren't, up to speed or happy with it. Combining departments is obviously a good idea because you can combine resources, you can combine. The new highway department, if that should go forward now, right now we're concentrating on what we call building number 1, which is the first building. The second building is going to be used for storage or whatever the town, what it may want to do with that. They've talked about putting some of the emergency management vehicles and equipment in there that come from throughout the whole county and what have you. But it may be an option. You could look towards maybe selling the water department buildings up there. They're in a pretty good location for being a business, and maybe move the water department down to the light control down on Hawks Avenue. That would let them work more closely. They work already together on different projects. It would let them work even better and have a central location for our highway and water. So it certainly would take a good idea to look at it and see if we could combine that in the best interest of the town.
Thank you. Mr. Egan.
I think it's time to look at the issue. I think in the very near future, if indeed the Plymouth County Hospital property is developed into a parkland, that will add to the burden of the grounds and buildings aspect of a potential DPW. If needs are going to increase, then we need to achieve some efficiency of operation somehow. Combining the two departments might be that way. In terms of selling the building, I'm not sure how that would work, since it was purchased with water department, what they call surplus fees, which are not the same thing as taxpayer monies. There would be some legal difficulties in terms of where that money would go in terms of a sale. So you have to think about that as well. But I think in the abstract, yeah, it sounds like a good idea. It did several years ago when we tried to do it. But it failed. People were upset by that and didn't want to do it. At some point, I believe it will happen. I'm not sure when it will happen. But this goes along with some of the other issues that, if we talk about committees, there are many committees that overlap one another. And we could take a look at that in terms of looking at our bylaws generally and seeing where efficiencies can occur. I believe that's about time to happen too. And that would be a good opportunity to look at the DPW aspect of things as well.
Thank you. This is a question that was, it's a social media question. And I'm going to start with you, Mr. Egan, because you were the last one to go. I had this all numbered to have 4 people, so I'm jumping around a little bit. Do you think social media is helping the town of Hanson or hurting the town of Hanson?
That's an easy one for me. I believe it's harmful. Social media in the abstract sounds like a very good idea. The problem is that I think there is some misuse of social media in the sense that it gets to a point sometimes when people don't take responsibility for their comments and for their contributions to social media. And there's a certain amount of anonymity that's present, and that causes a great deal of difficulty. And we're still in a transition kind of thing from the more traditional aspects of communication to the social media thing. And I don't believe, honestly, that a lot of people have given enough thought to the idea of authenticity and veracity in terms of what appears on social media. We need to understand what is real and accurate and factual and be able to tell that from someone else's opinion and unsubstantiated statements. So it's difficult to do, but yeah, we have a freedom of speech situation in this country, and I would not impede that in whatever manner at all. But I do think social media, the way it's being handled currently, is a detriment.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think social media has provided a venue for people to exercise some things that shouldn't be out there. I don't do any social media. I do look at it from an informational standpoint. I don't know if that's good or bad, but the social media thing is something that, it isn't something that you want to try to control or anything like that because of the freedom of speech. We all have freedom of speech, but we don't have freedom from consequences. And when you add that social media aspect to it, some people in anonymity feel that they can get away with certain things and attacks on other people that really isn't fair, and there's no accountability there. So I'm really not in favor of it.
Thank you. Laura?
I certainly echo what both of these gentlemen have said. I think that social media allows cowards to hide behind keyboards and say things that they would never say to your face. And I think that's unfortunate. On the other hand, what I have seen is some really positive things out there. For instance, with social media, you've got the opportunity for the Hanson Police Department to immediately let everybody know that they've just arrested a drug dealer. And this was not something that we ever had before. You know, with the you know, the speed of light, we're able to find this stuff out. It also, you know, I found it to be tremendously helpful in getting the message out about fundraisers, about organizations. So it can be really helpful that way. It definitely has a very, very serious downside, and the veracity of the statements that are made on social media. You know, not everybody takes the time to kick the tires to see whether what's being said is true or accurate or factual. So there is that downside. But I do feel that we're seeing Facebook and other social media outlets take the fake news kind of situation and use that to tighten up their reins. And I'm hopeful that the pendulum might swing the other way.
Great. Thank you. It appears that McQuon School, in fact, we know that McQuon School is going to be closed, not this coming school year, but the next coming school year. Reuse of McQuon School or sell the building? And we're going to start with Mr. Scott.
Yes, that has come up a little bit in conversation that I've had with Mr. McEwen, our new town administrator. He's been the administrator in 2 or 3 other towns and a selectman for 6 years in the town of Mansfield. And 2 of the towns embarked on a rental type of thing, or with buildings that were not being used. They didn't have a great deal of success. The renters didn't live up to their end of and the towns that he was in, the 2 towns that had that type of situation as far as renting it or whatever, they didn't live up to their end of the bargain, and those towns ended up tearing those buildings down. I don't know if that's going to be an alternative for the McQuon School or not, but with the history of repairs there and the needs up there, I'm a little afraid what it might look like by the time the town takes it over and what the value of it may be.
Thank you. Laura?
So I think I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting when Mr. McHugh basically said there is a pitfall for the unwary. It's on, you know, at first blush it seems like, hey, yeah, we could make money and we could rent McQuon maybe to North River Collaborative or somebody else. The problem with that is we then become a landlord. And the reason that McQuon is, we can't lose sight of why McQuon is closing, because fundamentally there's going to be a lot of repairs up ahead at McQuon. So if we become a landlord, we're still responsible for making sure those repairs get done. And we're not sharing those costs at all with the school district. So it's totally going to be on Hanson's dime. So I think we really need to be thoughtful about, you know, about whether we want to be in the business of being a landlord and all that entails, because we'd be talking about trash delivery, liability, you know, for the town, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we need to take a look at it. And in terms of reuse, I was just at a community preservation forum last night, and Teresa Santalucia, who's on the Housing Authority, had been asked by people, well, would the Housing Authority ever think about maybe having senior housing or something up there? And, you know, she basically said, look, yeah, we'll look into it, but for the same reasons that we don't feel comfortable having that as a school for students any longer, we probably wouldn't feel comfortable having seniors up there. The cost of, you know, rehabilitating that would be rather staggering. So again, I think it's something that we really need to be thoughtful about. You know, whether it's torn down or rented or sold, you know, we need to do some thoughtful analysis on that.
Okay, Mr. Egan.
Municipalities don't make very good landlords. When you look across the span of the state, you'll find that municipalities simply can't keep up with the demands of the repairs and the upkeep of buildings that they are attempting to rent. It's a very difficult proposition, and it's difficult to put that kind of a situation on the shoulders of the town. The town can't respond quickly enough to take care of the matters. And the McCowan School is in terrible condition. The reason why we're closing it is because we can't afford to maintain it, but we would have to do just that in order to rent it. So I think rental is out of the question, but again, perhaps a more meaningful study could be done and some conclusions drawn from that. I don't see how it can change very rapidly from what we did 4 years ago. So I'm not sure the building is useful, and I would certainly have to be convinced that it was useful, and then we could decide what we could use it for. But the way it stands now, I'm not sure it's very valuable at all. It may be more of a burden than anything else. But when you start to think of possible reuses, there are many, and you would have to look at them and see if that would make sense in terms of the town maintaining ownership, in terms of rentals or whatever. Sale might be a thing. The land is certainly valuable. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the building itself is. So those kinds of things are what we need to consider as we move forward on that issue.
Okay, here's another school question. As you know, the school budget goes up every year, and it goes up a large portion every year because of all the employees in the school district. And the question to the three of you is, how do you fund the school budget without hurting other departments in town? Mr. Egan?
I don't think you can. I think that was fairly evident this year. When the school budget was finalized and the town budget was trying to move in that same direction, it became clear that there was a rather significant deficit, and finally and thankfully, the groups got together and were able to solve the problem. But the proviso was stated over and over again, and I think, sir, you maybe said this, was that,
probably,
yeah, that next year it's going to be more significant and extremely difficult to solve, and that one of the things we need to do is educate our population in terms of what exactly is happening. Our revenues are increasing, yes, but they're not increasing at the same level that our obligations are increasing. And you've got that crazy graph thing going on where the current time just keeps getting further and further apart. It's extremely difficult. I really don't know what we can do, but we're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure it out and where to go and how to get there, and we need to educate our citizens so that they understand what is happening in terms of funding.
Thank you. Laura?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, I don't know if you can do it without, it's a give and take situation. There, it's one pie, and you can only slice it so many ways. We don't have 1.5 pies, we have one pie. So if the school is getting a little bit more of the budget, then other departments are going to get less of the budget. That's a fundamental truth. What we can do is look for ways for all of us to be more efficient with the dollars that we're being given. I would really like to see us doing some efficiency studies at Town Hall. I'd like to see us doing some efficiency studies in the schools to see if there are some skills of economy for purchasing and the like that might save us money. If we look at things like DPW, how much is that going to save us? Well, could it save us money? McQuan, how much is that going to? So I don't think it's because none of us want to pay more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes. I'm sure nobody sitting here wants to whip out their checkbook and pay more taxes. So we've got to find a way to stretch the existing dollar as much as we possibly can. And the only way to do that is to look for efficiencies and look for areas that we can cut effectively without cutting services.
Thank you. Bill?
Okay. little bit of history and what have you with the, I was the police chief in Halifax, and I had a visit from the chairman of the school committee, and she said, "Chief, you're not getting your budget this year because we know how to play the game." And I'd certainly hope that's not the case with our school district and problem, but the money issue is extreme. It's not going to go away. It's a problem that is currently shared by a lot of cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth. Senator Diaz from Boston, I don't know if it'll get any traction or not, has filed a bill to address what she says is a $2 billion shortfall in funding statewide. So it's not an issue that's unique to Whitman-Hanson, but it is our problem in our own town. I think what's happened with some sentiment on the school district, some people feel that you folks lost trust a little bit when you went for the new school and the way that was all handled, and obviously the vote was affected by that. Putting that aside, putting it behind us, let's try to move forward. Let's see what we can come up with. Maybe Mr. Young came up with a tiered approach. I don't know if that's the answer or not, but it may or may not be something that needs to look at. I'd like to have seen maybe the all-day kindergarten get some traction this year and move forward. Definitely a need for the families with both parents working and all that. And not that the school should provide a babysitting service, but it's something that really should be looked at, and I look at that of importance too. So maybe we can come up with a way of taking that type of tiered approach and move forward on getting things done instead of going for a big ball of money, in a sense, that perception-wise by the people, and have it get voted down and be able to move forward that way by smaller steps instead of big steps.
It's hard to believe, it probably seems to the three of you, that this is going very short, but we're getting close to wrapping up this. We've had some very good questions and some tremendous answers. I'm very, very proud of all three of you, and I hope that the people watching will understand as we move forward more what each candidate's about. Another big question was, they talk about cable providers, and people think that possibly the cable costs are too expensive because we have one provider. Do you think that the towns should be looking to see if that can be split up, and therefore might be more cost effective? Laura?
I am dying with my cable bill. I mean, and I know I'm not alone. I remember years ago when cable was first, out, and we were promised, ad-free television, and now not only are we paying for our television, but we're paying for the ads too. So I would, like to see if we could do what other towns have done. Other towns have started their own cable stations, and maybe pull away from the Comcast mothership. I don't know what the cost would be there, or I guess we should be calling it Xfinity. I'm not really sure what they're being called now, but Comcast/Xfinity. But I do think that it's something. I know Selectman Howard, time and time again, has made it his mission to say that he is unhappy with the fact that there are no senior discounts. I mean, even the basic package is really not affordable. So I would like to see something change. I'm not really sure as a selectman what in particular we could do to change that, but I would be more than willing to take a look at what our contract is, whether there are other providers who would like to come to town and see if we can get some competitive bidding going. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Thank you. Mr. Scott?
Yes, I look at, we have cable, which, like as most people do. Our cable bill is quite low because cable is choice. If you choose the programs they offer, you're going to have to pay for it. I don't know what actual program, and it's not for me to tell Mr. Howard that he should or should not have a particular package, but if he chooses it and it gets quite expensive, and then you reach out and say, gee, because I'm senior, I should get a discount. Well, you've chosen that package, so you're going to have to pay for it. I think we should take a look at it to see if we could get another provider so it would become more competitive. And maybe that would ultimately push the pricing in being competitive to drop it down a little bit. So it's a good idea.
Thank you. Mr. Egan?
Competition is a good thing, and especially in terms of providing a service. The problem, I think, that occurs is infrastructure. Comcast either paid for or built the structure that's in place. They are not going to be bound by law to share that structure with another company. And having another company put in a similar structure is cost prohibitive. The FiOS option might be something that could be looked at. But it's a very expensive proposition to start up, and that's why cable companies have contracts with towns for a monopoly, in effect. And that's why things get up. One solution I think we could make is to break up the bundling of various things so that you could pick and choose the 6 or 7 or whatever channels you want to watch. I know you're in a hurry, so I'll stop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that fact. We've really run along. I know I told you could all have 2 minutes. They've signaled me that we have like 4 minutes left, so you get a minute apiece. Mr. Scott.
To wrap up?
Wrap up.
Certainly. Yeah, I ran for selectman 3 years ago with some concern about from folks and what have you, and I really enjoyed it. I think I brought a ton of experience to the board and what have you with my background, not only being in business but being successful with working in sales. I've had and being successful in the police department. I've been on both sides of the bargaining table, and that gets very controversial at the time. But I think I bring that experience to it. And I think that, being open, I hate the word transparency personally because it can't be transparent in government. But we try to be as open as we can with the things that people would like to know. Some things they can't know because of maybe separation agreements or something of that nature. So we've worked hard to move the town forward. I think we've done a lot. There's been some consideration or talk out there about discourse and everything. I really think it's healthy for a board at times to disagree, but agree on a goal. That's my sentiment. That's the way I try to approach town government, not just a big rubber stamp every time 4 or 5 of us sit up there, and sometimes it gets a little controversially and out of hand, but I'd like to have people give me the consideration of their vote. I think I've done a good job for the town. Some projects I'd like to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Laura?
So I have significant experience professionally with budgets, managing people, managing projects. I'm unafraid to be innovative. I'm unafraid to ask the question, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way for us to do it? And to pursue whether there is a better way for us to do things. And the time is now for that type of leadership. As we've discussed in this forum, we are going to continuously be grappling with how to do more with less. And it's going to take innovation to do that. So I'm asking for your vote on May 20th, and with it you'll get innovation and you will get collaboration.
Laura, thank you. Mr. Egan.
My name is Jim Egan. I've been a selectman in your town for 9 years. I have some experience. I know what the job is like. I think I have the skill set that's necessary, and I would hope that on May 20th you could find yourself voting for Jim Egan. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for the support that I have received in the past, and also would love to anticipate support in the future. Thank you, Bob.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that this forum has given you some insight of the candidates that are running for election in the town of Hanson. I'd like to remind you that election day is May 20th. The polls, I believe, open at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at McQuon School on May 20th. I believe it's 10 to 5, which is coming right up. Please exercise your right to vote. It's what democracy is all about. Come out. These candidates have all run a very, very hard campaign. They all want to be elected. They've spent a tremendous amount of time, whether it's in forums or whether it's holding signs or campaigning in coffees. They've put in a ton of time. All they ask you for is 5 minutes of your time on May 20th to get to the McQuon School between 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock and vote for one of them. Thank you so much for watching today's forum, and it was sponsored by Whitman Hanson Community Access.